I'm here with Brenda. Brenda has been married to her husband. Tell me your husband's name.
Tom.
Tom. Brenda's been married to Tom for 23 years and was a teacher for 38 years before retiring pretty recently, and was even my first grade teacher. It's been really fun to have the chance to reconnect with Brenda and try to call her Brenda. Get out. But thank you so much, Brenda, for being willing to chat with me today.
You're welcome.
Brenda, first of all, tell me, why did you choose to be a teacher? Was that always what you were planning to do, or how did that happen?
When I thought about going into teaching, it was a time when there was a surplus of teachers. And many people told me it's really difficult to get a job right now in teaching. So I thought about that, started college at WSU, and for a PE credit, I was allowed to teach fourth graders how to swim. And I had been teaching swimming lessons before that. And that just confirmed for me that I wanted to be a teacher. That was what I wanted to do more than anything. And I also thought, then when I have my own kids, I'll have all the same holidays and summer with them. It's perfect that way. So I pursued it and decided after 2 years at WSU to go to Eastern because I had a degree in reading, which was much more specific and gave me more of an opportunity to get hired. And through a series of very wonderful miracles, I ended up with a teaching job my first year out of college.
Wow, even with the surplus.
Yes.
That's incredible. Okay, great. So you mentioned planning to have children. One of the reasons I'm grateful Brenda is chatting with us today is that Brenda does not have children of her own. And so tell me, when you got married to your husband, what was yours and Tom's family plan, and then how did that unfold?
Okay. Well, we were hoping to have kids as soon as possible. We tried for a year or so, and there were some people in my family that had infertility problems. So we started going to the doctor and doing tests. And at some point, the test came and just said, there's no probability of you having any children. So we worked through that and accepted it. And about a year and a half later, found out that we had received someone else's test results. So this is before HIPAA laws, I'm sure. But anyway, so by the time we got that all straightened out and I started going back in and talking about infertility, I was too old to have kids. So that's the shortened version. My husband says a stork forgot to land at our house.
That's a good use of humor there.
Yes.
Okay, so as years have passed and you have, I'm sure, fielded a lot of questions about this from students and friends and family, how have you and your husband learned to be okay with what your life is when you wanted children so much?
I think me being a teacher, for me, that really helped a lot because I could pour all my love and attention into the kids in my classroom. It's not the same thing, but it was a way to channel that for me. And we have nieces and nephews, and we have friends with kids, and we just work through it. You know, I was angry at first. We were sad, and we went through all those different stages, but there are lots of kids in our lives, and it has worked itself out. It's interesting, though, at first I never thought about not having grandkids. And so that was kind of another whole wave of sadness that we're not going to have grandkids of our own.
Oh, I've never even thought of that. Thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I am most proud of with More Than is that we highlight women who are mothers in maybe atypical ways. And Brenda, as my first grade teacher, I have, ever since I was 6 years old, people have asked me who my favorite teacher was, and I have said without missing a beat, it was Brenda Schulteis.
Thank you.
And that is because when I told my husband that I wanted to interview a few months ago, he was asking me why. And if you'll allow me to get eloquent for a second, I was trying to explain to him the way that she made me feel seen as a 6-year-old and made me feel like I was one of the smartest people in the room, and that I was capable and enjoyable to be around as a child. And she just made me feel so big and so seen. And he summed it up in a way that only my husband can by saying, "Oh, she made you feel more than."
Yeah.
And I thought, yes, that's exactly why I want Brenda on here, is because she is a more than mom, and she made me feel more than. So tell me about how you do that. How do you go about doing that in a classroom of 25 plus students? How do you make children feel seen and individual?
Gosh, by being honest and being myself and letting them be part of my world and expressing an interest in their world and what they're interested in and what makes them tick and how do they learn best. And it takes time and it takes effort. You've got lots of kids, but you're with them a lot of time and many days. And, you know, there are some parents I spent more time with their kids in a day than they did. And I always thought of that as such a gift to be able to teach those kids and have them part of my life. And a lot of the years I've taught, I had kids for 2 years. I'd have a combination class of first, second, or third, fourth. So that second year was just such a magical time because I knew their families and I knew a lot more about them. So I don't know, just being genuine, I guess, is probably the core to a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved the kids I taught. I truly loved them.
Yeah, yeah, I think your students always felt that. It's been amazing to me in the classrooms that I have walked into, particularly the younger grades, that you can walk into a first grade classroom and you can pretty much peg within a very short amount of time which kids are more bound to be academically excellent, which kids are more likely to be high school dropouts, which kids, their families spend a lot more time together. You know, it's very, very clear, those differences right off the bat. So what can a teacher do for a kid that seems to be destined for less success?
Try to help them find ways to enjoy learning, help them to find things they're interested in. Um, Always encourage them, always help them find something that they can be proud of and build on that. It's not always easy, but you know, different things work with different kids too. So
Yeah, for sure. Tell me about, from your perspective from a classroom, what kind of things have you noticed make for unsuccessful parenting and successful parenting? Um, and then the way that that translates to a child's success in academics.
thing that can really get in the way is if the parents undermine the teacher. That's probably the toughest one to because if the kid feels like their teacher is not on their side and the parent supports that, or the parent is very negative about the teacher, the child's going to come negative. And so that's a pretty big hurdle. I tell parents if they have time to do one thing for school with their kids is to read to them. It's probably the most important thing they can do, especially in these times right now where we're doing distance learning. I think the kids that read a lot are not going to make, they're not going to have that gap that kids that aren't reading are going to have. So if there's one thing you can do is read to your kids. As they get older, have them read to you, talk to them about the literature, keep reading to them so they hear the vocabulary, they hear the phrasing. keep working on that. I think that is probably the single most supportive thing, and being positive about the child's teacher that you can do to help your kids succeed in a classroom.
Hmm.
Math facts probably come second. If you can work with them to give them that quick recall on the math facts, that, that's another thing. But, being enthusiastic about school, being positive, even if a parent doesn't always agree with a teacher, keep that relationship a little separate, and try to show your child all the good things that are coming from that classroom and that teacher and their classmates.
Yeah, that's great advice. What kind of a relationship do you as a teacher want with a parent?
Open communication, honesty. We're both there for the best interests of that child. The best advocate for any child should be their parents, and the second best should be their teacher. So if you can work together and try to achieve the most you can for that child in any of the aspects of that child's life, I think that's very powerful.
Okay, I want to return back to reading with children because I know that's something you're really passionate about. Sum up for me, in your mind, what are the benefits of reading to kids?
When they're little, it starts with just showing them which way's up and right for a book, how you turn pages, how you follow text. As they start to recognize some words and hear that language, it just reinforces to them what reading is and what it's like, and that you can go back and reread that, and it's the same words on the page. As they start learning to read, they listen to your phrasing. You can talk about vocabulary. You can talk about words. Isn't that a great word? Doesn't that make you think of, a bright sunny day or whatever? And then talking about what's happening in the story. That story sense of how a story evolves, and what the characters are doing, the plot, setting, it all just gives them that story sense. And they'll use that in their reading, they'll use it in their writing, they'll learn to spell better. I mean, it encompasses everything that you want for that child to be a good reader.
Yeah, that's a pretty good endorsement. So as a teacher, you read out loud to your class all the time as well. Do you have favorite books for specific ages that you love to read?
I have so many. There are so many wonderful picture books, chapter books, Charlotte's Web, Freckle Juice. Gosh, I feel a little distance right now from what I read to them. When I taught 3rd and 4th graders, I would go to Scholastic and buy each child the same book. They're $1 a book. And I'd read out loud and they'd follow along. So they each had their own book. That was really powerful too, for them to see that, because some of those kids don't hear stories at home and they don't get read to. And some of the kids had trouble even following. And I would notice that they would get better and better at being able to follow that text as we read more. But, oh gosh, I'd have to, any Caldecott winner is going to be a good book. Any Newbery book is going to be a good book.
Sure.
They win those awards for reasons. And if you're looking for a place, I'd start there. But there are just so many.
Yeah, I could talk books all day, I think. Another thing that you were really passionate about a teacher is that as funding gets low in academia and public schools, one of the things to go is children who need services don't get them. So you would fight as their educator to help them get the resources and the services that they need. Tell me what that looks like.
A lot of it's persistence, and We had a school counselor that was only there maybe a few hours a day or a couple days a week, and just reminding them about that student and how much they needed that help, ways to find other resources, trying to hook the parents in to talk to that person so they had another advocate for that child trying to get services for them. A lot of times kids are tested, and the kids that don't quite make the testing aren't services. So you have to look at how the impact is affecting that child in the classroom and outside the classroom. And sometimes I've had parents that realized through my assistance, um, I can think of a child recently that needed speech help and went outside of the school and got private speech help for that child. Um, and that's not something that usually happens because we don't want to have parents thinking we're sending them away for service, but it's a gentle process, especially when you have very young children, to start to talk to a parent about something you notice in that child that they could use extra resources beyond what the teacher can give them. That's a pretty hard thing for any parent, I think, to
Sure.
think about or to hear. So it's a real gentle, long approach to get there. And it usually takes more than one teacher. You know, one teacher will kind of introduce something, and maybe they don't know for sure what's going on yet. So, yeah, I just think you have to be gentle and work together. I don't have all the answers, I never do, but you know, if we're both seeing something, and just keep trying to get that help for those kids.
Okay, well, thank you so much for answering all of my very nosy questions
Oh no, there were good questions.
and chatting with me. Okay, are you ready for our speed round?
I'm ready.
Okay, great. Brenda, what's your favorite sound?
Laughter.
What's your least favorite sound?
Telemarketers calling.
Oh, yeah, that's a great answer. Tell me your favorite word.
Jesus.
That's a good one too. Tell me what you know.
I know that words are very powerful, and saying I love you, I forgive you, or I believe you are three of the most powerful sentences we have.
That's beautiful. What do you want to learn?
I want to learn a few more favorite recipes because we're really working on the ones that we've been eating a lot lately. I'd like to add a little more to that list.
Brenda, what scares you?
The whole COVID-19 is pretty scary for me.
Yeah.
I'm a worrier, and I worry about kids going back to school. I worry about, us having relationships with other people, just how it's going to sort itself out. It's going to take a lot of patience.
Yeah, I think nobody knows how this is going to affect the future. That's scary. Tell me about a mom you admire.
My mom, very strong, very smart. She was a pretty incredible mom. So I have friends, their moms, that I admire a lot too. So and some of them I got to teach their children, so it was like a double bonus.
That's way fun.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, last question. Brenda, what are you good at?
I'm good at teaching, and I think I'm especially good at teaching reading and math.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brenda.
Thank you.